For more than a year, people have argued about vibe coding. Is it a productivity breakthrough? Is it a security risk? Does it even count as real engineering? Honestly, those are fair questions. One side looks at vibe coding and sees speed, working software in hours instead of weeks. Another side sees risk-generated code moving into places where no one fully understands the dependencies, the assumptions, or the failure points. And engineers hear people treating generated output like it's automatically production ready, and of course they push back. All of that makes sense, but I don't think the useful question is whether AI-generated work is good or bad. The better question is, where does this kind of work belong? A disposable prototype is not the same thing as a production workflow. A pre-sales demo is not the same thing as an integration touching customer data. An internal helper is not the same thing as financial automation. So the debate gets a lot clearer when we stop judging the tool in the abstract and start classifying the output. That is what this is about. In the latest article, we lay out 3 zones for AI-generated work: green, yellow, and red. Green is where speed matters most. This is mock-ups, prototypes, demos, early UI concepts, internal helpers, and anything where the main value is learning quickly. Yellow is where ownership starts to matter. This is the standard features, internal apps, workflows, integrations, and team tools. AI can associate the work, but someone needs to review it, test it, understand it, and maintain it. Red is where engineering rigor has to lead. That is critical logic, regulated data, identity and access, financial workflows, security-sensitive processes, and anything that creates real operational risk if it fails. Thankfully, we're not starting from scratch. Microsoft has published a governance guidance for agents. Gartner has used a similar pattern in enterprise architecture for years. Our goal is to connect those ideas into a practical model that teams can use today. Back in July 2025, Microsoft published governance guidance for AI agents inside Power Platform. The useful thing about Microsoft's model is that it starts with deployment scope, who's building it, who's using it, and what level of control needs to apply. Microsoft describes 3 zones. Zone 1 is personal productivity. This is individual experimentation. In isolated environments, the oversight is intentionally lighter because the blast radius is smaller. Zone 2 is collaboration. Now the work has moved beyond one person, the team is using it. Environment policies matter. Connector restrictions matter. Someone needs to understand what data the work can reach and where it is allowed to run. Zone 3 is enterprise managed. This is where agents move into production. Now we need monitoring lifecycle controls, stronger governance, and clear ownership. That is the practical value of Microsoft's framework. It gives organizations a way to scale governance as AI-generated work moves from personal experimentation into team and enterprise use. This is not actually a new idea. Microsoft is applying a pattern enterprise architects have used for a long time. Gartner introduced pace-layered application strategy back in 2010. The idea was simple. Not every system in the business should move at the same speed. Systems of record move slowly because they run the core business. They are the systems that handle the transaction and processes that companies depend on. They need stability, control, and strong governance. Systems of differentiation move at a medium pace. These are the unique business processes that help a company operate differently from its peers. They still need governance, but they also need room to evolve. Systems of innovation move quickly. These are experiments, prototypes, and new ideas. Some of them become valuable, some of them get thrown away. Of course, that's not a failure, and that is the point. The lessons from Gartner was never to govern anything the same way. The lesson was to match the governance to the kind of system you are dealing with. Gartner's model looks at system durability, how long the system is expected to last, and how often it should change. Microsoft's model looks at deployment scope, who's using the work, and how broadly it's deployed. Same instinct, just a different access. At Kumo, we add a third lens, output criticality. Because deployment scope matters, system durability matters, but neither one fully answers the question that teams run into when AI generates something useful. The question is, what breaks if this output is wrong? This is where we see green, yellow, and red becoming useful. The green zone is where speed wins. Think mock-ups, prototypes, pre-sales demos, internal helpers, and early concepts. In green, the code may not matter for very long. The value is not permanence of the asset. The value is getting the idea in front of people quickly enough to learn something. So yes, move fast there. The yellow zone is where ownership starts to matter. This is where you get into the standard features, internal apps, workflows, integrations, and data transformations. AI can absolutely accelerate the work, but someone has to read the output, someone has to test it, someone has to understand what it's doing, and someone has to own the results after the demo is over. This is where Microsoft's roles fit naturally: reviewer, monitor, and protector. The red zone is different. Red is where the consequence is real critical business logic, regulated data, identity and access, financial workflows, anything that can create operational compliance, security, or customer risk. If it goes wrong in red, AI can help. It can draft, it can analyze, it can scaffold, it can accelerate the work, but it does not lead. Architects and engineers lead there. The model can support the work, the model does not get to own the consequences. All of these frameworks point to the same direction. Gartner helps explain why some systems need more control than others. Microsoft helps explain how governance should scale as AI-generated work moves from personal use to team use to enterprise-managed use. Green, yellow, and red. Extend those ideas across the delivery conversation. They help a team decide where speed is safe, where ownership is required, and where engineering rigor has to take over. That is the missing practical layer, because in the real world, teams are not only asking which framework applies, they are asking, can we use this output? This matters even more when the conversation shifts from code to agents. With code, someone usually has to run it. A person reviews it, presses run, and looks at the results. That does not make code risk-free, but there is usually a decision point before the code executes. Agents change that. Once enabled, an agent can act on its own. It can trigger a workflow, update a record, send a message, call a connector, move data, or start a process. That changes the risk profile. The model is no longer just helping someone create the work. At runtime, the model may become part of the work. This is why Microsoft talks about agents as digital labor. And if we're going to treat agents like digital labor, we need to govern them like digital labor. They need trackable identity, they need scope permissions, they need monitored behavior, they need lifecycle controls. And the zone an agent lives in should match the consequences of getting the action wrong. A green zone agent can help someone explore information. A yellow zone agent may assist with team workflows, with a human still owning the result. A red zone agent touches processes where wrong action can create real damage. So the takeaway is simple. You don't need to invent a governance model from scratch. Microsoft has already published one. And enterprise architecture patterns that Gartner has published have been working for years. What teams need now is the discipline to apply these ideas to actual work in front of them.